Hi, my name is Hunter Provyn, and today I'm going to talk about what Y-DNA testing can do for you if you are interested in your genealogy. You want to know who your ancestors are. Maybe you have some familiarity with doing an autosomal DNA test, like that you can order at Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, other companies. Here is a tree showing one set of my fourth great-grandparents at the top, their children and all the living descendants from each child at the very bottom. I'm on the very left. Any relative of mine, up to and including fourth cousin, meaning a descendant of that first son on the left, is probably going to show up as my autosomal DNA match. However, I'm unlikely to have an autosomal DNA match to any given fifth cousin, i.e. those descending from any of the other children of my fourth great-grandparents, shown to the right. You can think of this fifth cousin's matching limitation as a firewall. You won't be able to confirm a relationship to anyone on the other side of a firewall from you through autosomal DNA. So if you only test autosomal DNA, it won't be able to resolve whether your paper trail fifth cousins descend from the natural children versus adopted children of your fourth great-grandparents. Y-DNA matching can break this firewall, proving or disproving more distant relationships. But if you don't care to confirm through DNA any relationship more distant than fourth cousins, then you don't need to turn to Y-DNA. You may also find it useful to order a Y-DNA test for an autosomal DNA match that you don't know how you are related to, because your paper trails do not intersect. Whether their Y-DNA haplogroup matches yours or not, you get actionable information to help you exclude certain possibilities regarding how you may be related. If the Y-DNA haplogroup matches, it means you have a common uniparental male line ancestor with them. Your father's father's ... father is their father's father's ... father. If that's the case, then you know exactly where in your paper trails you need to match with this person. You have excluded the vast majority of the paper trails. The important limitation to understand is that Y-DNA is only inherited father to son. So at each generation, there is the chance of the Y-DNA line dying or daughtering out. This is what we call it when father does not have any sons. Anyone descending from your common ancestor through a daughter at any generation, or who is female themselves, will not share your Y-DNA. This means that only about 1 in 64 of an average person's fifth cousins will be able to be tested to confirm their Y-DNA relationship. Those who are male and descend from a son at each generation, starting at the fourth great-grandparent. While some people may be unlucky and not have any genealogical time frame male line relatives living or who have tested their Y-DNA, every man who tests their Y-DNA can learn who their closest male line relatives are, or if those samples are anonymous, then where they trace their male line descent to, if they have indicated their ancestry on a public Y-DNA database at either YSeq, FTDNA, or YFOL. No matter what your Y-DNA result is, you will have some next closest Y-DNA relative who could be related to you within a few hundred years, a few thousand years. Potentially, your relationship could go all the way back to when Y chromosome Adam had lived. YFOL estimates that he lived about 236,000 years ago. If you take what I just said about Y-DNA, but replace the word with mtDNA, that's mitochondrial DNA, and then replace what I said about sons with daughters, then that's all valid. So without repeating myself, you can determine whether or not an autosomal match or just any other random person that you suspect could be related to you, if you match the same mtDNA haplogroup, then you have a common female uniparental line ancestor. When you learn about which other men are your closest male line relatives, you are the one who decides what of that is interesting to you. You might decide, okay, it's not so interesting to me that my ancestors have been in Belgium for the last 500 years, or maybe because not enough of your mainline relatives from Belgium have tested to really give you the interesting information, the specificity of where your line had been living in Belgium. Maybe you're missing that because your relatives haven't tested, or maybe there just weren't very many of them. In that case, you may be interested in what you can learn. And in my case, that was who are my next closest relatives from the last 2,000 years, 2,000 to 3,000 years from the Iron Age. And I found that I'm from a male line that probably came from Illyrian or Pannonian people. This is people from the Southwest Balkans, maybe the Central Balkans or Pannonia, that's South Central Europe. And it's fascinating to me because it's an area where we don't have written documents dating from before when the Romans and the Greeks came into contact with these peoples. The greatest enigma of my male line ancestors is which tribes they belong to, where they were living in the Iron Age. During the Iron Age, my male line ancestors were doing very well. We are one of the most prolific lines of J2B L283. It's called J2B Z631. There are thousands of us all over Europe and the rest of the world since then. Yet, in this part of time when our ancestors were doing very well, having many offspring in the Iron Age, we don't have any ancient samples dating from that time. All we have are ancient samples that are after that time. So we're not sure about where we originated. So I'm really interested to learn, when we finally learn which exact tribe, we will learn this. It's just a matter of time, as long as the samples exist in the ground and have not been degraded or burned, and as long as there's some remains that can be DNA tested, then eventually we'll get to the bottom of that riddle. The geographic origins of your male line at different times may be very clear from a lot of survivors to this day that trace their male lines to the same place, so it's consistent. Or it may be clear because ancient samples prove that the male line ancestor from 1 or 2 or 3 or 4,000 years ago must have been living around the area where we find the ancient sample. Or it may be your male line may be more enigmatic, meaning there are not ancient samples closely related to give a strong indicator of where your male line ancestors had been living. And maybe all the survivors are scattered geographically, so you're not really sure about where your male line originated. You may decide to become really interested in solving this riddle. So that's something that I help people do. I do Y-DNA consultation. I'm good at analyzing STRs. If you look at genetic distance from STRs and you treat it as just like a Pythagorean theorem, just the distance. If the distance is greater between two samples, it means they're more distantly related. You can do pretty well. You can do pretty well, and you're generally going to be right. You could be a reasonably effective haplogroup researcher or a project administrator, grouping samples together on that basis. I wrote software that just, like almost 10 years ago, I started writing software to do that. Then after I started working with Thomas at YSeq, I learned a lot more about the theoretical underpinnings of the STR, Y chromosome STR. Some of them mutate at a higher rate than others. The allele matters. The higher the allele, the greater the mutation rate generally. But there are exceptions. Anyway, I offer Y-DNA consulting to help you achieve your Y-DNA research goals at the rate of $50 an hour. You can contact me through email, hunterprovyn@gmail.com. Thank you. The resolution of the male line haplogroup compared to resolution of the female line haplogroup that we have seen from consumer DNA testing and analysis is such that we get a higher resolution, we get more branches in any given period of time from analyzing the Y DNA, and there's some reasons for this are that the mitochondria is a different structure, has less DNA in it, and if there is a problem, often the embryo is not viable. And another reason is that there's different average number of children, or I mean, the variance in number of offspring is different between men and women. Sometimes a man can have hundreds more offspring than another man, and with women the variance is lower than that because there's just a mathematical you cannot have more than one child every 9 months unless you have twins or triplets or something, which was kind of rare in the past.